All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Nothing for Nothing Leaves Nothing podcast. I'm your host, Lewis, and today's topic, we're going to talk about thoughts and reactions. Let's talk about it. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, today's topic, we're going to talk about thoughts and reactions. So, why are we talking about this particular topic? Well, it's something that's been on my mind for a good while, and I just felt like I wanted to talk about it. So let's talk about it. Thoughts and reactions. So everybody in the world has their own individual thoughts and thought processes for how they look at life, how they view things, and how they process information. And based off of those thoughts and viewpoints is how they react to situations. Now, when it comes to dealing with thought processes and reacting to situations, the one thing I would say is everybody's in control of their own actions, right? Now, a lot of times when there is a situation, somebody may think something has happened, or may think that something was construed a certain way, or may think that because they think or assume something that they believe that to be true. Now, I firmly disagree with that standpoint and that viewpoint. However, you give everybody their just due to believe and think what they want and to process and deal with things the way they want. Now, by doing that, that means you give them their fair space, let them respond and think the way they want to think. And it is not your job to change somebody's thought process on a situation. Now, case in point, you might go into a situation where somebody may assume that something is happening or assume that something is going on that may not be there. Now, they usually form these thoughts based off of things that have happened in the past, because that's usually how people form and accumulate their thoughts, right? Is based off of things that they've experienced and things that they've gone through. So they try to use those past experiences to relate and to tie that into what's currently going on, and then that's how they formulate a thought and move forward. And that's with everything. Well, that's from whether you're doing schoolwork, whether that's you're interacting with people, whether that's in a relationship, or whether that's your view on politics. Usually with politics, a little bit, I feel like it's a little bit more, it's a little different, just for the simple fact being a lot of times you can, from a political standpoint, you can vote for an individual party or individual person and think that, okay, that's just, regardless of how things turn out, you kind of have a locked in mindset. So regardless of how it turns out, you continue to still kind of roll and continue to vote the same way usually. Now, every now and again, people will look at things and kind of reevaluate and then go back and make a different decision when it comes to a voting standpoint. But usually, they stay on the same path. But like I said, when it comes to having thoughts and just having interactions with people, depending on what the situation is and what's going on, you tend to see that a lot of times somebody might have a particular thought process on a particular situation, and it's almost damn near impossible to change somebody's mindset to get them off of that marker. And when that is the situation that you're in, I think that the only best way to handle that is to be mindful of it. But in being mindful of it, you don't fall into or get into a situation where you are reacting based off of their reaction. So, and that's the hard part, right? Because when somebody's reacting to something and their reaction might be well overblown or off, I would say off the path of normalcy, you tend to end up in a situation where now you're reacting to their reaction. Now, when you're dealing with situations like that, I think that you always have to try your best. And I say try your best because it's not always the easiest thing to do to maintain calm and to maintain your stature when you're dealing with a situation like that. A lot of times when we deal with situations like that, you can end up in a situation where you might be being accused of something. And like I said, that's like, say you're at work and you got a boss that's looking at pure numbers, just based off of pure numbers. And they're like, man, based off of the numbers, this is the situation we have going on. And they're not looking at the actual interactions that are going on. They're just looking at the numbers. So you have people, when they say people are numbers people, all they do is look at the numbers, and that's what they feel is the end all be all, because they say numbers don't lie. That may be a fact in many aspects, but a lot of times, depending on what those numbers are coming from, if you have interactions that are going on between people, I feel you should look at those interactions as well, because that is a key point into getting the full picture. Like, yes, the numbers do give you a picture, but if you want full context and full understanding, you have to look at the whole picture as a whole. And like I said, when it comes to dealing with situations and you talking about, interactions with people and their thought process, you can't trying to change somebody's thought process is almost like I said, just good luck. Like it doesn't work. Now, a lot of times when people have these kind of thoughts and they're setting their thoughts in their ways, they try to make the other person change their viewpoint or try to understand where they're coming from. Now, you can give somebody grace and try to have an understanding where they're coming from, but just because I have an understanding where you're coming from doesn't mean that what you're saying is correct or what you're saying is the truth or the end all be all to a situation. Now, you come across situations like that and you tend to lean on the side of, okay, this is what you're thinking, this is what your thought process is, cool, I'm gonna let you roll with it. And the reason you let people roll with those thoughts is because a lot of times, eventually, if you know that you're not doing something that somebody's saying that you're doing, and you're not being other than what you know to be the best way you can be it, that's all you can stand on. You can't let people pull you out of your zone or pull you out of your comfort level to be like, okay, I need to change this for this person. And a lot of times I think that's what happens when it comes to interactions with people. People will try to fit a mold sometimes just to try to either fit in or try to get over or whatever the situation may be. Like I said, you just have to stay true to who you are and how you feel and how you move. And letting somebody, because they're thinking a certain way, change what you're doing or changing how you move makes no sense. Somebody can take something and take a situation and be like, oh, well, I felt this way. Cool. That's how you felt. There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. You can feel the way you want to feel. But just because you feel that way, you can't expect somebody to turn around and be like, oh, this person feels this way, that means this has to happen, right? Like, you have to turn around and capitulate to whatever the situation is or what was going on. I can be mindful to your situation and have an understanding of it, but that doesn't mean that is the king and the end all be all of a situation. And a lot of times I think where people have issues is people tend to look at those situations and think, oh no, if I feel this way, this is the way it is. If this is what I think is going on, that means this was going on. And it's not the case. And you try to sit there and try to figure it out and try to navigate it and try to smooth it out as best way you can, but a lot of times the smoothing doesn't work, and then you end up in a situation where now you have two people on opposing ends having an issue. And I think to deal with situations like that, the only thing you can do is at some point, if a person feels a certain way because that's what they're locked into and it won't change, that means it's not going to change. So you deal with them accordingly. DMX had a famous line where he says, I trust people to be who they are, right? I trust a snake to be a snake. I trust a liar to be a liar. I trust a thief to be a thief, and that thought process and that mindset when it comes to dealing with situations, I think is the best way to do it, because you're going to have everybody that's in your circle or that's around you is not going to be, the greatest person in the world. You're going to have friends that, yeah, y'all are cool or acquaintances and y'all can hang out and chill and do stuff or whatever, and they still are jacked up as an individual, right? I'll use myself as an example. I am not a perfect person. I try my best to try to live the correct way as best I can, and like I said, I fall and stumble just like everybody else does, especially being a believer in Christ. Like, you're going to stumble and you're going to fall, but you have to repent and you have to try to put your best foot forward to move forward and continue to try to be the best person that you can be. Now, in the midst of you doing that, you have to understand that in the midst of you taking that path and trying to be the best person that you can be the best way you know how, a lot of times people around you are not always going to agree and not always going to say, oh yeah, you're doing the best that you can to be the best person, the best version of yourself, because people judge. Now, people judge, that's just what they do, and a lot of times you open yourself up to judgment depending on what you're presenting and how you're trying to carry yourself. So if you know that and you understand that, then you know how to move and how to process and how to take yourself moving forward when it comes to interacting with folks or dealing with situations that you might feel may be less than, especially when you think about, like I said, having interactions with folks or having an interaction with a person that feels a certain way or thinks a certain way, and they come up with a whole gambit of things that they feel is what's going on. And that's the thing for me that trips out. Like, a lot of times, like I said, I can't control things that other people do, right? So if you know you can't control what other people do, then you focus on what you can control and what you can focus on, and then you keep it moving. I can't sit there and say, oh, well, I think this person did this and this person did that and this person did that. And it's like, okay, that's cool. Where's your proof? Right? Where's your information that's telling you that what you're thinking and what you're saying is a fact? See, a lot of times when people come in situations like that, and people will run around, and people do it all over the place. People will be like, man, I saw this, and they'll try to put two and two together and form their own opinion and come up with stuff. And then they'll be like, yeah, man, this is what it is. This is the truth. And it's like, okay, well, what do you have that can substantiate what you're saying? And if you don't have anything to substantiate what you're saying, why are you focusing on something that has nothing to do with you? Why are you trying to formulate a narrative about something when it serves you no purpose? See, I think everyone needs to focus and be mindful. And like I said before, and just be focused on yourself. Focus on the things around you that you can have an impact on, that you can control. You cannot control the people around you. You cannot control individuals. You cannot make people do something they don't want to do. You can't make people think a certain way. You can't make people react a certain way. And you can't make people move a certain way. And when you do that, you end up in a situation where you become super frustrated, super irritated, because you are thinking that people are doing stuff, and people are saying things, or people are forming opinions or presenting narratives, or however you want to put it, when it's not the truth. So, like I said, when you're dealing with a person like that, what do? Me, I stay silent a lot of the times. Why? Because at the end of the day, talking serves no purpose. Because like I said, if some person has a mindset made up, you can talk to you blue in the face. You ain't going to change their mind. If you're talking to a Democrat about a Republican, there's nothing you can do to change their mind. Unless they are somebody that is of a mindset of being fair and trying to have an open understanding and an open outlook despite what their viewpoint is. And that's not always the case, especially in today's climate, because everything is based off of what you see and what you can formulate your opinion on, right? So like, if you're looking at people on social media and they're presenting things like, oh man, this is how things are going, everything is great and life is good and it can't get no better than this, but in reality stuff is all jacked up, right? Like, it's not a full picture. You're going based off of what you're seeing, and what you're seeing is not complete. So now people are looking at things and saying, oh yeah, this must be the way it's going. And I think that's the jacked up part when it comes to, like I said, when it comes to thought processes and people having a thought about something without it being substantiated. So if what you having a thought of is not being substantiated, then you try to run or try to present something and it can't be substantiated, you usually end up in a situation where people look at you funny, because people are like, you're saying all this stuff, but none of the stuff that you're saying is making sense, or none of the stuff that you're saying is adding up. So if it's not adding up, what do? But you keep running to that particular mindset, that particular scope. And like I said, man, I've seen it. Like, even with friends of mine, man, like you end up in a situation where they're like, dude, like, this is what's going on. And I say that, and with the thought process piece, like on my last podcast, I talked about when people don't get it. And it's the same situation when you have a person that has a thought process of, yeah, this person is this, or me and this person are this. And the reality is that's not the case. That's not the truth. What you're thinking and what you are trying to process is not tangible. It's not logical. So if that's the case and it can't be substantiated, then you end up in a situation where a person is like, hey, this is what's going on, this is what the deal is, and people end up in a situation where it's like, look, man, like, this makes no sense. This person's thought process is weird. This person is not normal. The way they're thinking is not normal. So it's like, how do you deal? Right? Like, how do you interact with this person? How do you have conversations with this person if whenever they have a thought or have an assumption, as that it becomes law, especially if it's not substantiated? That's where things always get wild. And like I said, when I'm talking about that last podcast, when it's like you have a person, like you got a guy that his dude is like, hey, like we're besties, or hey, we're friends, and hey, we're this and we're that. Or you have a girl that's doing the same thing. Hey, we're friends, we're besties, this and third. And then the dude is like, nah, man, like we're not even cool on that level, right? Like, yeah, I can see you and say, hey, what's up? Let's keep it moving. And the person's thinking it's a whole lot more going on than what it is. And now you end up in a situation where it's like, look, now I gotta, we gotta set this straight. And then you go to set it straight, and you end up in a situation where now this person's like, yeah, like this person did this person did this, and you're like, what? Like, how did you draw that conclusion? Like, where are you getting this information from? And like I said, that warped sense, man. People just, it's the thought process. And I would say, even from my time when I worked in a mental health ward, right? And I was in a mental health ward for about 2 years, just, working as a tech. And like, even during that time, man, I seen it. Like, some people's thoughts and how they construe and view stuff is just, it'll blow your mind. And the one thing I saw when I was there is like, when they were treating these people and having conversations with them, they tailored the conversation to kind of warp and kind of bring them out of that weird sense that they were in when it came to them thinking about things a certain way. And it's not so much to get them to change their thought process. It was more so to get them to fully process through the thought, if that makes sense. So I think in life, that's what we have to do. Like, you have to let people, or try your best to get people to process fully through the thought, so that they're not stuck in the same limbo or the same story over and over and over and over and over again. And I think if we can do that, and if you work your way through that, or allow people to work their way through that, things will be resolved a lot faster, and things won't get out of hand. Now, let's talk about reactions. Everybody reacts to situations differently. That's just the way life is. Nobody thinks the same. Nobody, processes the same, and nobody looks at things the same. But everyone is in control of their actions and their reactions to situations. For example, I saw a video today where there was a young black girl in the Walmart, and she got caught stealing money out the register. So when she initially went to the back, she was tough, brash, bold, talking all kinds of crazy. And then the minute the cops put hands on her because she got irate, because it was like, okay, hey, we got to take you into custody. Then she went humble. She went, oh, this is not what it is. Like, y'all tried to hurt me. This is like just all of the normal stuff that happens when people get arrested. And you're looking at that and you're like, man, like, why do people get like that? Like, why are you reacting that way? See, the thing is, like I said, you control your reactions. When say you get caught doing something, right? You caught. Let's call a spade a spade. You caught. So if you're caught, why react all irate? Oh, that wasn't me. This was like all that kind of stuff. Take your L and move on. That's what I say, right? At the end of the day, take your L and move on. So, like, even for me, it's something that I still work on. I'm not perfect at it. A lot of times, sometimes it's a little difficult to accept your L. But at the end of the day, you got to find a way to find a balance to be, to recognize the truth and be like, okay, yeah. Like, when you're wrong, you're wrong. When you're caught, you're caught. And when you're busted, you're busted. Right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But you'll get people, like I said, that'll sit there and try to spin it and try to work their way through it. And then as soon as it really, really gets hot and heavy, then they're like, oh, yeah. I'm sorry, like I didn't mean to do this, like, I apologize, whatever, stuff like that. And it's just reactions, man. Like, you are in control of your reactions to a situation. A lot of times it comes down to self-control. You have to have your own self-control to be able to keep yourself together and not go nuclear every time something jumps off. And you've seen that. Like, we've all been around people that just get that explosive about everything. Like, as soon as something happened, they are going 0 to 100. Right, just skyrocket, boom, right to the max. This is what's going on. And when you come into situations like that, you have to understand what's going on and try your best to maintain your calm. You still a line from Demolition Man when they say enhance your calm. Enhance your calm. It's one of those things that I would say probably proves the most difficult when it comes to having self-control when dealing with situations, especially when emotions get high and emotions get irate. because you can maintain self-control to a point, and then people will literally try to push you to a point where you are legit going beyond the norm, right? Like, you're, as they say, you're seeing red. So when that's the case, you still have to try your best to be able to maintain, and it's not the easiest thing to do. I would say for myself, it is not the easiest thing to do. There are times where I've seen red at some points, and I'm like, man, it's the most difficult thing in the world not to go full tilt nuclear. And the only way to keep yourself from going full tilt nuclear is to, step away from the space or remove yourself from a situation the best way you know how, the best way you can. And even after that, taking a minute to be like, all right, look, I need to pray about this. I need to talk to the man upstairs to get some guidance, to get some clearance, well, some clarity, and to be able to, get yourself back to a space where, things are back to normal, to where you're back in control of yourself, in control of your thoughts, so that you're not flying around, flying off the handle. But you end up with people where they don't take control of their thoughts, they don't take control of themselves, and then they go nuclear. And a lot of times it's something small, right? People sometimes take things very minute, and then they tend to blow it up. And when they blow it up, that's where stuff tends to escalate, right? How many times have you seen a situation where that escalation has gotten really, really bad? Like, everybody's seen news stories of road rage. I remember some years ago there was a road rage situation where a guy got into it with a guy for cutting him off. He gets mad at the guy that cut him off, and then the guy that he chases the guy back down. The guy he chased down pulls out a gun, fires 2 shots. Guy wife who was sitting in the front seat ended up getting hit, and then she dies. She's in the front seat, she gets hit, she's down, and then you got the 2 kids in the back, right? It's one of those things where it's like, man, like, something so small can escalate to something so big. And then it's always the after effects. So people are sitting back and now everybody's collecting themselves, and they're like, man, like, this wasn't a good situation. Wow, this shouldn't have happened. Or wow, this should have been handled differently. And I think we have to get to a point where, as people, you can agree to disagree. And that's key, right? Agree to disagree. Everybody's not always going to be on the same page. Everybody's not going to be on the same accord, but be able to agree to disagree, right? You don't have to agree with decisions and agree with thought processes, but you can go your way, the person can go their way, and then y'all can keep it, try to keep everything situated and keep it moving the best way you know how and the best way you can. Not always easy, like I said, and it's not always something that is on the front part of your mindset, especially when emotions and stuff get high. But even with emotions and stuff getting high, you still have to be able to maintain who you are. Be able to keep yourself together the best way you can. And when you do that, it allows you to be able to not let situations take you out of your comfort zone, not situations take you out of who you're being and who you're trying to get to. So I say in closing, be mindful of your thoughts. Be in control of your thoughts. Be in control of your reactions to situations. Don't let people set you off. Don't let people push your buttons. Don't let people take you out of your comfort zone. Whether that's, people at your job that's coming in talking crazy to you all every day, even though when you go to work and you're tired and you're exhausted and somebody's still talking smack to you. Don't let those people take you out your comfort zone. Then don't let, just in general, coming across people or being in situations. You at a Walmart or at a store and somebody cuts you off or somebody jumps in front of you or whatever the situation is. Don't let those small things take you out of your zone. Stay true, stay locked in, and keep yourself moving. That's it for this episode of the podcast. Like I said, make sure you guys like, listen, subscribe, and share the podcast so we can continue to grow, continue to keep on moving, and continue to see where this thing goes. I will catch you guys on the next go round, and you guys have a good one.